My God, I hate drugs.
It's been a year since the first shots were fired and the city of MARAWl came under siege. Now residents are slowly picking up the pieces and the government is all out in helping MARAWl get back on its feet. But what are the challenges MARAWl residents face after the war? We have Lanao del Sur Crisis Management Committee spokesperson, Assemblyman Zia Alonto Adyong, joining us from MARAWl City. Assemblyman, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning, Pinky. It's a pleasure.
Sir, can you tell us the situation on the ground now? How has it been a year after the siege?
Well, we are starting to move forward little by little. I guess the challenge is really overwhelming. We don't deny that. And there's still a problem as to the identification of the areas where the Task Force Bangon MARAWl can put up the permanent shelter. The temporary shelter, they have already constructed it, Site 1, Site 2, and Site 4. But there are still families who are still living in evacuation centers, and that has been one of the most pressing problems and challenges what we are facing right now. Basically, the concern of the IDPs, as both the IDPs in evacuation centers and the home beside us, especially those families who have lost everything. Their houses were destroyed in the most affected area, is the insurance that they will be compensated by the government in terms of building back their houses and their properties. So it's really, well, today is the anniversary, but there's nothing to celebrate really, Pinky. So we have a simple program today here in Provincial Capital, and then in the afternoon we will distribute 5,000 packs, which is on top of the ongoing relief operation that we also complement with the efforts of the DSWD. So basically that's the general sentiment right now. The challenge is still there, and we're trying to do our best working with the FBM, Task Force Bangon MARAWl.
Yeah, so I guess, Assemblyman, what you're saying is the focus will still be ba ang nananatili sa mga evacuation centers?
Well, I actually don't have the exact figure right now, Pinky, but most of there are families who have already been given and awarded units in the temporary shelter. So decrease na po yung number ng ating mga IDPs in the evacuation centers. But there are still a number of families. One family in the evacuation center is already too much, no? Dapat nga lahat na mabigyan na rin ng temporary shelter. So yun talaga yung pinaka-challenge, no? Because,
of course, sir.
Ang basic naman talaga ng pangangailangan ng tao is actually a roof, no? Somewhere they can really feel comfortable and protection from the sun and from the rain.
Right.
So that's basically one of the pressing problems and challenges that we're continuously working on.
Maliban po, Assemblyman, sa the temporary shelters, excuse me, sir, ano pa ho ba, what is next that government should really be looking into? I know you talked about housing as well, the kind of financing that government should or will. How will they assist the residents? What are they telling you, sir?
Well, I think we need to put more effort on providing livelihood assistance, programs that would spur economic life in the city. We have to be more concerned with providing socio-economic projects to the people that are displaced. Because number one, if you have businesses or livelihood for the people, even if they are displaced or even if they are away from their regional, from their homes, from MARAWl City, still they can do business and they can do earnings someplace else. So I think that's one of the one of the things that we need to develop further. As to sabi nga ni Sir Toby, there's already allocated budget for programs, economic programs and activities outside of MAA, and perhaps we can also use that, develop further mechanics on how to provide livelihood assistance to the displaced people. In the provincial capital, what we did is we actually had partnered with NGOs And we provided livelihood assistance, technical assistance to the displaced women. We actually provide them weaving facility so that they can also learn how to do dressmaking and then later on make their own, their living. No? So it's important that dislocation from the area of their origin doesn't necessarily mean that they're also dislocated from opportunities. We have to bridge that gap. Kasi right now, wala sila doon sa kanilang mga pamamahay.
True.
And they're facing an uncertain future. So we really have to bridge the gap by providing business and businesses livelihood assistance to the people.
And sir, as a last question for those who may want to help the people of Marawi, paano ho ba, saan ho kayang area pwedeng pumasok yung mga gustong tumulong?
Well, we already had the link with the PDRF, yung Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, and we also partnered with the Philippine Franchise Association. Yung mga NGOs po na tumutulong din po sa atin, nagpupool po sila ng mga donors doon doon sa partnership po ng LGU at ng mga international humanitarian organizations, NGOs. But if they want to go directly, for example, provide assistance, they can either go to Task Force Bangon Marawi because we also need to manage yung pumapasok po na tulong. Here in the provincial capital, we have a menu, what we call menu. Kung ano po yung kailangan ng mga tao natin, mga evacuees or doon sa mga temporary shelters. And if any organization willing to help out, they just have to look at the menu. And we also need to know kung ano yung pwede nilang itulong so that it can fit perfectly to the needs of in a certain area ng mga evacuees. So they can either go directly to Task Force Bangon Marawi and also communicate with the local governments of Marawi City and Lanao del Sur.
And thank you for joining us, sir. Lanao del Sur Crisis Management Committee spokesperson, Zia Alonto Adyong. It says there are almost 80 billion pesos needed for full rehabilitation, and yet so far you're looking at a target of about 75 billion. So, sir, just let's look into Assemblyman Adyong's concerns. Evacuation centers, can you give us a number? How many evacuation centers are still there and how many families are still living in evac centers?
We still have around 1,097 families in 40 evacuation centers in Region 10 and 40. Yes, in Region 10 and ARMM. But most of our IDPs, internally displaced persons, are with their relatives, with their friends, with their families.
So that's the IDPs that are with their families is separate from the 1,000 families still living in 40 evac centers.
Yes.
So iba pa ho yun.
Yes, and we're providing them with relief, with relief goods.
So maybe the question, sir, is why is it taking a while to build temporary shelters so that they can leave the evacuation centers and stay in temporary shelters, sir?
We have to identify more available land on which to build these temporary shelter sites, as we call them. We already have a temporary shelter site in Barangay Sagunsongan, and there are a number of families already living there, around 600 plus families already living there. And we have to identify additional areas where we could build these temporary shelters and even permanent shelters as we continue to rebuild the most affected areas.
But how difficult is it to look for a place, sir? Anyway, it's just temporary, hindi ho ba?
Well, of course, there are certain complexities, certain sensitivities in identifying land. But we're doing it the fastest way we can, and we're consulting with our stakeholders.
Okay.
Kagaya naman ng ginawa natin sa Barangay Sagunsongan, dun sa transitional shelter site. Yung transitional shelter itself na binuo dun, na 24 square meter transitional shelter, naging resulta ito ng consultations with our stakeholders and even with the local government units, particularly our barangay stakeholders, para ma-identify natin kung ano talaga yung gusto nila in terms of the transitional shelters. And we will replicate this kind of consultation and decision-making process in the additional transitional shelter sites.
But if you say government is doing the fastest it can, we still have a number of, let's put it at 5,000 individuals still living in evacuation centers. That's a little hard possibly to digest, sir, na bakit may natitira pa. I know you're saying you need to identify the land, but with everybody helping out, and I don't know, sir, if I'm making the problem too easy, or looking for a solution that seems so easy, but if everybody is helping out and there's land available na pwede namang ipahiram muna for the sake of the people of Marawi, ganun ba kahirap yun, sir?
Well, no rehabilitation, no relief effort really is easy, no? Post-conflict or kahit post-disaster yan, na natural calamity, no?
Yeah.
Napakahirap niyan, lalo na dun sa magnitude at doon sa number of persons involved. Pero yun nga, binibilisan natin yan. It's really unfortunate, no? We don't want to have IDPs in evacuation centers ng ganito katagal.
Yeah.
But that's the reality at kaya binibilisan natin yung ating mga efforts.
And then another point raised by Assemblyman Adyong was, what kind of financing? Meron na ho ba? Is it set the kind of financing that government will provide those who want to rebuild their homes, sir?
Congressman Adyong of Lanao del Sur has already filed a compensation bill in Congress. Ito ay pag-aaralan na po ng Kongreso at para ma-determine kung magkano ang maaari nating i-allocate at ibigay sa mga natamaan, lalo na sa most affected areas.
Sa MAA. But sir, ang ibig sabihin ho ba nito na may ibibigay na pera ang gobyerno that is free and then another part would be a financing scheme?
That's part of the discussion still, either free or mixed na free, some grants, and then some loans or some through financing. So hindi pa tayo sigurado yan dyan, but that's the strategic direction. We support that compensation bill filed and we will participate in the discussions in Congress para alam natin talaga ang gagawin natin at para makaset aside na tayo ng budget para dito sa compensation ng ating
But
mga
why not
kababayan.
tackle it now already?
Yes, it will be tackled very soon and I wouldn't be surprised if it will be certified as an urgent legislative measure.
Okay, and then, sir, a while ago we talked about the MAA, no? So that's ground zero, that's 22 billion pesos allocated, hopefully groundbreaking the third week of June. How about outside MAA, sir? Give us an overview of what's going on there.
Well, outside MAA, we already have what we call the Bangon Marawi Comprehensive Rehabilitation and Recovery Program, or BMCRRP. We're just finalizing the programs, activities, and projects that will be part of this comprehensive rehabilitation and recovery plan. Hopefully in the next few weeks or in the next few weeks, this will be approved already by the President because actually this is the standard that what we do in post-conflict and post-disaster. We have a CRRP. We want to make sure that
And CRRP is
comprehensive rehabilitation and recovery plan. And that's why we're vetting all the programs. We have 800 plus, as of last count, I believe we have 800 plus programs, activities, and projects under this CRRP, this 53 billion CRRP. And we're vetting all these projects, and we're dividing them into short term, meaning those that can be accomplished this year, and medium term, which will be accomplished between 2019 and 2022.
Give us an understanding, what is in the short term? What
is
could
in the short
possibly
term?
be there?
Well, the repair of relatively untouched or slightly damaged buildings, because we're talking about outside the most affected area. So hindi po ito gaanong damage. Of course, there's still damage and people were still affected. And part of this, this is not just for the city of Marawi, but also for Piagapo and Butig. So kasama nito, repair ng schools, repair ng public infrastructures, konting rebuilding, konting reconstruction. But then again, the big chunk, kaya malaki to dahil malaki yung area, but the big chunk of the rebuilding in terms of solid rebuilding would be in the most affected area.
Yeah. Meron na ho ba, ano na ho ba ang nagawa na naayos since the war ended?
Well, patuloy ito. I don't have the specific buildings or specific structures.
Well, what about the hospital, sir?
Yes, meron na tayo dahil meron nang nagbukas uli na hospitals. And for example, the schools, certain schools have already been repaired or repaired at ready na sila to receive learners and students during the opening of classes this June. So tuloy-tuloy naman yung ating efforts dyan. No? Kagaya nito na yung pagbabalik rin ng ating mga residents outside the most affected area, nakabalik na sila. Because remember, 96 barangays ang Marawi. 24 barangays ang nasa loob ng most affected area. So the 72 barangays outside the most affected area, nakabalik na po dyan ang ating mga kababayan.
Does it mean, sir, that outside the MAA, life is quite back to normal, ganun ho ba? Would you describe it as that?
That is what we understand. And of course, one of the mandates of the task force is to return the lives of our communities, of our brothers and sisters there, to normalcy the quickest way possible. And that's what we will do.
What about the timeline? Ano ho ba ang timeline na nakikita ng gobyerno or the government is targeting?
Well, in terms of the most affected area, the target is to rebuild it by December 2021. But in the next year, between now and this time next year, kukumpletuhin natin yung debris management, debris collection. No? So wala pa talaga tayong makikitang construction per se sa most affected area
In
immediately.
a year, yeah.
Dahil
Nililinis
kailangan muna lilinisin pa. But of course, pag meron ng area na nalinis, magko-construct na tayo.
But that's quite a target, sir, 2021.
Yes. So
that's
from around 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
3.5
that's really
years.
just 2 years of rebuilding because 1 year will be for cleaning out
Yes, correct. We
the debris.
understand and we will demand from the developer kung sino man itong mapili na 24/7, 365 ang pagtatayo niya dito.
Okay.
And again, outside the most affected area, we have short-term and medium-term projects.
I really hope that happens, sir. At least yung pag-rebuild is 24/7, 365 days.
Yes.
Sana po mangyari talaga yan.
Yes.
All right. Any more, sir, you'd like to add from the side of government on task force Bangon Marawi, sir?
Well, we would like to assure our citizens that, again, as we've been saying all along, the task force is an accountable and a transparent organization, agency, and that we will keep you updated. We will give you periodic reports. We're present in social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and all other forms of social media. You can go to our field office in Iligan for donations and to get updates.
Yeah.
And also, you can go to our offices directly. The Task Force Secretariat has offices at the Office of Civil Defense in Camp Aguinaldo and at HUD-C in Makati.
Housing, yeah. So we talked about that, no, sir. How many houses is supposed to be built? Meron ho bang number?
Well, in terms of the transitional shelters, yung figures na nabanggit kanina, 6,400 transitional shelters and around 3,524 permanent shelters. But this is still outside ito dun sa itatayo uli ng ating mga brothers and sisters sa most affected area.
Yeah, okay. So ito yung what you talked about is just outside
Yes.
the most affected area. All right. There's a lot. This is still a huge challenge, sir. You've only just begun, I guess, and this will take a while and lots of. Siguro, sir, kailangan talaga tutukan.
Yes, kailangan tutukan. And we invite everyone also to check on us to make sure that we're doing everything the right way, and we welcome all suggestions, criticisms, comments, and obvious naman ito sa consultations because as you know, yung initial target natin ng groundbreaking is around May, no? At na-move ito ng June. This is not a delay.
Yeah.
We just had to consult with other additional stakeholders, no? Kaya you can say that we sacrificed a bit of our deadlines in order to get more people involved.
Yeah.
Because what we want is a participatory rebuilding and recovery of Marawi City.
Thank you, Task Force Bangon Marawi.